Hi everyone, my name is Metalsmith and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be making my very long tier list of all 96 tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Because like I mentioned in my retirement video for Mario Kart Tour, I have been playing a lot of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe lately, that I feel it is a perfect time to be making the massive tier list of the courses in this game. Now, there are 4 things that I'm going to be talking about when judging these courses. One of them is not really that important, but the 3 main things are general gameplay, the creativity behind the course, and shortcuts, because I like my shortcuts. The one thing that isn't that important is music, but if I feel the need to mention it and include it, then I will. But it's not something that I'm going to be including in every single track. It's mostly going to be gameplay, creativity, and shortcuts. That's about it. The way I made this tier list was in the format of the official Super Smash Bros. Ultimate tier list. So if you're unfamiliar with that, basically, the tiers A, B, C, and D all have 2 different divisions. So it could be A+, A-, B+, B-, C+, C-, and D+, B-. And the S tier at the very top has 3 different divisions, S+, S, and S-. The reason I decided to do it like this was because I knew there were going to be a lot of tracks, and I didn't want the whole thing just being boring and just me talking for one long tier, so I tried dividing the tiers up into little chunks so that way we could go one at a time and there's always something going on. And now a couple disclaimers before we actually begin. This entire tier list is strictly my opinion, so my opinion is not a fact. Your opinion will 100% be different, and if it's not, I'm honestly in shock. Like, I'm honestly in shock. If your opinion is not different, I'm going to be absolutely surprised. And at the end of the day, it comes down to, if I see the track online, am I going to pick it? Do I want to play? Am I going to enjoy myself? It's basically where I'm going for with this tier list. So, with everything out of the way, let's begin and talk about my Mario Kart 8 Deluxe track tier list. Alright, we're going to start off with the D- tier, the very bottom of the list. The tracks that I do not enjoy playing at all. If I see them online, I'm not going to pick them. And if I play them, I'm probably just not going to enjoy myself. I really do not like playing these tracks. Also, I'm going to try and talk about the tracks as little as possible because we have a lot to go through and I don't want to waste too much time. So let's get started with Baby Park. Now, there are 2 kinds of people in this world, okay? There are those who love it for how chaotic it can be, or there are those who absolutely hate it with every fiber of their being because it is a very simple design and a bit too simple, which is kind of lacking. And that's me. I do not like Baby Park one bit. I do not like the course design. I don't like how it's just a circle. The shortcuts, kind of lacking. There are corner cuts, which can be effective, but it's not really the greatest idea for shortcuts, which is not really what I like, to be honest. So, yeah, Baby Park I've never liked. Like, it's gonna go all the way at the very bottom. I never really understood it. I'm just one of those people that really do not enjoy Baby Park. Next up is Moo Moo Meadows. Moo Moo Meadows I think is a bit too simple, and I think I outgrew the track very easily. It has its corner cuts, or shortcuts. I call them corner cuts because it's not really like an alternate path that you can take. You're basically just cutting the corner with a mushroom. And yes, they can be effective. Those are really good shortcuts. But at the end of the day, I think the track is very simple, kind of boring, and its obstacles are way too simple. Like, I think it needs that kick. You know, when I want to play a track, I want it to have a little kick to it, a little bit of excitement. Otherwise, you know, I'm not going to enjoy it. It can't be too boring, and that's basically what Moo Moo Meadows is, so that's why I'm putting it in D-. And lastly, in D- we have Excite Bike Arena. And I don't think I need to explain myself for this one. It's basically Baby Park Deluxe. Baby Park Deluxe is what we're going to call it. It's basically exactly like Baby Park, but it's way wider. It has wider shortcuts, which is the corner cuts, like Baby Park, and it has jump boosts. That's it. That's the only difference from Baby Park. So, yeah, it's basically a step above garbage. Like, I don't think I need to explain too much what Excite Bike Arena is. It's kind of like Baby Park, just way longer and a tad bit more interesting because it has jump boosts and larger corner cuts. But that's about it. Other than that, it's a step above garbage. Alright, we're gonna kick things up a tiny notch and go to the D+ tier. We're still in the D tier. I don't really like these tracks, but they're not really ones that I would put like all the way down in D-. I don't hate them as much as Baby Park, or we'll say that. So in D+, we're going to start with N64 Rainbow Road. I don't know why, but I feel like that could be a very controversial one, because from what I heard, a lot of people really like the nod to Super Mario 3D World, because the fireworks in the sky, they are basically stamps from the actual game, Super Mario 3D World. They're stamps, it's a reference. And I'm not gonna lie, that is a really nice touch. Like, that's a really cool touch. But other than that, the track layout is extremely dry. And there are absolutely no shortcuts at all. Like, it's not really that much of a special Rainbow Road. Like, even in SNES Rainbow Road, there are, like, just a few corner cuts. And a shortcut as well. So, at least in SNES Rainbow Road, they actually have that. N64, not one bit. There are absolutely no shortcuts at all, leaving the track to be very dry and boring. And that's why I'm putting it in the D tier. Next up is DS Cheep Cheep Beach. I'm not gonna lie, this is honestly a track that I kind of outgrew. It also got very dry and boring. Shortcuts are kind of lacking and it's a bit slow. So over time, I never really saw enjoyment when playing Cheep Cheep Beach. It's not really something I wanted every time I played online. And plus, you don't really see it online that much. Like, not many people are picking it. So I haven't played it in a very long time. Plus, it got really dry on me. So that's why I'm going to put it in the D tier. It's just not really there for me anymore. And finally, in the D+ tier, we have SNES Mario Circuit 3. This track has a lot of shortcuts. But that's about it. That's about it. It only, like, it has, to me, it has a lot of shortcuts that are very, very useful. But that's just about it. That's the only thing I find special in this track. Like, the layout is not really that fun. It's kind of generic. The creativity, there's not really any there, and I can't really blame it for that. It's an SNES track, and the music is not really that great. The only thing that shines for this track, for me specifically, are the shortcuts, and that's about it. Like, that's the only thing I could properly look forward to if I ever see this track online. So, yeah, no words. That's just why it goes into D+. Okay, we're not going to stay in D tier for too long because now we're headed into the C- tier. Now, for C- and C+, these are tracks that I also don't really like that much, but not absolutely hate to the point where I'd put them down in D tier. And if I'm going to play them online, I'm just iffy on it. And it's not like I'm not really going to enjoy myself. It's just something that I'm really iffy on. But generally, these are tracks that I don't downright hate. So, we are going to get started off with N64 Toad's Turnpike. Okay, so Toad's Turnpike to me got really old, really fast. I think that the gameplay is very, very boring. As a kid, because I played Mario Kart Wii a lot, I would call it... I'd call it rip-off Moonview Highway. That sounds really stupid, but as a kid who hasn't played Mario Kart 64 and a lot of Wii, that's what I called it. But now that I'm older, I realize that Toad's Turnpike is kind of lame when you compare it to the next track, Shroom Ridge. DS Shroom Ridge. So Shroom Ridge, although I'm a bit iffy on it, I will admit is a much better version of Toad's Turnpike, because you have a better layout, you have a more interesting track layout, and you actually have decent shortcuts, which in Toad's Turnpike, you don't really have any. So Shroom Ridge, I generally think is better than Toad's Turnpike, but both of them, I'm just kind of iffy on playing them. It's not like I would go into an online lobby and hope I get Shroom Ridge or Toad's Turnpike. They're just kind of there, and to me, they're not really anything too special, so that's why I'm going to put them in C-. Next up, we have N64 Calamari Desert. Even in Mario Kart 7, I wasn't really a big fan of the track. Like, I feel like the track is too empty, to be honest. Like, the layout is not bad. The layout's not bad. The soundtrack's not bad. Shortcuts are pretty good as well. They're actually pretty good. But the track is too empty, and it felt like too boring because of that. I think it's because it has like the long open area even on off-road, and maybe you're not paying attention to that, but to me it just feels a bit empty, and it just feels like something is missing, something that could make it more interesting. So that's why I've never had too much fun with Calamari Desert, but either way, I don't downright hate it. So I'm just going to leave it in C-, sitting very comfortably in the middle. Before Donut Plains 3. Donut Plains 3, it's an SNES track. Like, this one's like the more boring SNES tracks. There are some more as we go on in the list, but Donut Plains 3 it's just okay. Like, it's okay. I don't mind Donut Plains 3 that much, but it's still an SNES track. I don't think it's that interesting. But it's okay. It's okay for an SNES track. I don't really mind, but it's not something that I would really want or downright hate. So C- once again. And the last track in C- is Amsterdam Drift. Now, if you've watched my tour videos, which I'm assuming you probably have because I just started with the new content, Amsterdam Drift is probably my least favorite city track. I thought it was really slow, really boring. I thought the soundtrack was really just slow as well. Everything about this track just seemed slow, and that's why I didn't really like it. I put Amsterdam Drift pretty low on my city track tier list for tour I did a little while back, and I'm not going to put it in D tier here because I think I put it in D tier on my other list, but I'm not going to put it in D tier here because I feel like there are just worse tracks that could go in there. But Amsterdam Drift, despite it being my least favorite city track, I think it deserves a bit better than D tier, so that's why I'm putting it in C+. Kicking it up to C+. First up, we have N64 Choco Mountain. Now, Choco Mountain, I don't entirely mind playing that course. However, same issue again. I think it's a little too simple, and it lacks something interesting going on. Sure, it has falling boulders, which is like the only obstacle. I mean, there's what is there? The swoopers. There could be the swoopers in the caves and also the falling boulders. And it has a couple of shortcuts, but other than that, I think it's a little bit too simple. So I'm all right with playing it, but it's definitely lower than average in my opinion. Next up, 3DS Rock Mountain. By all means, I don't think it's that bad of a track. My biggest issue is that a good chunk of it is a glider section, which is honestly like a little bit weird to me. I don't really know how to describe it, but I think it's a little bit weird. However, if you have mushrooms, if you're like bagging and you have mushrooms, you could take the long cut to all the way to the right, which is a lot of fun. But other than that, the fact that it's just a glider also makes it very slow, and it lacks trying to keep it fast pace. So because of that, I'm going to leave it just in C, but not C-, because I don't think it's that bad of a track overall. Next up is Water Park. And Water Park, honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of outgrew it. It's one of the first tracks in the game, and again, not really a bad track, and I think it's a really creative idea, like literally racing in a water park. But in terms of shortcuts, okay, can we talk about shortcuts with Water Park really quickly? It only has one major shortcut, and it's around the end of the track where, like, what are those? The little pods are spinning. It only has that as a shortcut, which is kind of lame. As a first track, I would expect at least more than one shortcut. When you have a first track, you at least want 2 or 3 shortcuts. So I'm kind of just disappointed by the one shortcut. But other than that, I mean, it's okay. In general, I outgrew the track. So that means I don't really have much of an interest in playing it as much as I used to. So therefore, I'm just going to leave it in C+. Next up is DS Peach Gardens. Peach Gardens, I mean, it's all right. Like, it's just okay, but not to the point where I'd put it in the B tier for, like, the basic or the average tier. Because I feel like it's also pretty slow. Like, Peach Gardens is also pretty slow. Most of the track is also pretty wide, which also just makes it pretty boring. Like the end of the track, for example, and also the huge garden where the chainchomps are roaming around. I feel like because the track is really wide, it can be pretty boring at times. So I don't see myself having too much fun with Peach Gardens all the time. So that's why I'm going to put it in C+. And the last two courses in C+ are Paris and London. Paris Promenade and London Loop. So London Loop, I'm going to go first because ever since its release in Tour, I've never had much of an interest in it. Like I thought the track was just kind of there. And I think the reasoning for that is because when I played it in Tour, it never really showed up that much, so it was easy for me to forget about it. But even then, it's not my favorite city track. I think that there are way better city tracks compared to London Loop. And honestly, same thing with Paris. I think that both London and Paris have the same kind of situation in my head, where they were pretty absent in Tour, and I kind of just forgot about them right away. And even in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, I don't really enjoy playing them as much as other city tracks. So I'm going to leave them in C+ for now. Probably not bad tracks. Definitely not going to be in C- or in the D tier. But I'll give them a comfortable spot in C+, if anything. Alright, we are halfway there, pretty much. We are now in the B- tier. The basic tour. Well, not really basic. It's more balanced. It's average. So in B-, we have the two Mario circuits. Well, two of them out of the... I need to remember how many Mario circuits there are in this game. But if anything, in B-, there's GBA Mario Circuit and Mario Circuit from this game. So I put GBA Mario Circuit lower than the one in this game because GBA Mario Circuit is a bit simple. Like, it has that one anti-gravity area, which I will really commend it for that. They did an awesome job implementing that. And it has some good shortcuts. Like, it has pretty good shortcuts, and it's not a bad Mario Circuit by any means. I just think that the Mario Circuit from this game is 100% better. Because you're basically driving upside down for, like, half of the track. And even though it's, like, the simple Mario Circuit in this game, just like all the other games, they did a really good job nailing the anti-gravity, because when they were trying to, you know, showcase it and promote it because of Mario Kart 8, I think they did a really good job. And even though it's still a simple track, Mario Circuit, I'd be lying if I say it's boring to play on, to be honest here. Next up, Los Angeles Laps. Now, Los Angeles Laps, not a bad city track by any means, but this is just how I feel about it. This is how I feel about it. Kind of just blank face. I never had any strong opinions on Los Angeles Laps. I'm just like, hey, this is not a bad track. That's about it. Like, I never had any good or bad opinions on Los Angeles Laps. I think it's always been pretty average. So I'm just going to leave it there. Very simple reasoning. Also, they got shortcuts in Los Angeles Laps. They got some good shortcuts. I'm just going to get that out of the way. Also, flying over the is it baseball? Yeah, it's baseball. I had to remember for a second. But flying over the baseball field, great touch. Absolutely amazing. Anyways, so next up is N64 Yoshi Valley. Now, Yoshi Valley, I think it's okay. They got a couple shortcuts, which can be a lot of fun to use. The gameplay is pretty nice. However, it's a bit dim, like in my head. Like, it's not as colorful or out there compared to other tracks. But by all means, again, not a bad track. So I'm going to leave it in B-. Just keep it there. Average spot. Not a bad track at all. Nor is it super good. It's not anything special. So it's going to stay in B-. Next up is Super Bell Subway. Now, Super Bell Subway, the idea, fantastic idea. Like, literally racing in a subway station and in the tunnels of the subway, fantastic idea. But the one thing that turns me off with Super Bell Subway is how claustrophobic it can feel. Where the two you ever get into a situation where the two trains are like right next to each other, and you would either drive on the left or the right or directly in the center? And also, even if that's not the case, like, there could be pillars, or maybe it could just be in the tunnel to begin with. It's very tight. It's very claustrophobic. That's what I mean. So that could be a bit weird, but honestly not a bad idea. They were really creative with it, I'll give them that. But because of how claustrophobic it can be, I'm going to put it in B-. Next up, Sweet Sweet Canyon. Sweet Sweet Canyon is also a pretty good idea. Just making an entire environment out of sweets, which yeah, I think it's pretty cool. But the track seems a little bit too simple, and I won't blame it for that because it is one of the starter tracks. But I was never really the biggest fan of Sweet Sweet Canyon, that I don't really have too much to say about it. The shortcuts are alright, the music is alright, and the gameplay, also alright. So I think that's like the perfect average course, to be honest. I was never really the biggest fan of Sweet Sweet Canyon, but I'm not going to say it's bad, so I'm going to put it in B-. Next up, Daisy Circuit. Daisy Circuit, really good track from Wii, but I don't know. Again, like, I was just never really the biggest fan of that course. That's one thing that you're going to hear a lot in this tier. I was just not really the biggest fan of these courses. But again, I'm just not going to say that they're bad. Just not really the biggest fan is all. So I'm going to say that about Daisy Circuit as well. And then you have Bangkok Rush, which, again, also not really the biggest fan. Like, it's just average. Like, it's just average at the end of the day. It's not a bad course. It's not a good course. It's just nothing special. I just think it's average. Like, it's just there. It's fine. Like, B-. Again, like, exact same reasoning. Not the biggest fan of Bangkok Rush, but not a bad track. Okay, Sky High Sundae. I actually do have something to say about Sky High Sundae. It's actually a good track. I enjoy it a lot, but the thing is, no shortcuts. If they actually had like a couple shortcuts, I'd probably put it in like A or maybe even low S, to be honest, because it's a really cool track. I'm not gonna lie. But the fact that it doesn't have any shortcuts is a little bit weird to me, but I don't know. It's weird. The fact that it doesn't have any shortcuts. I feel like it deserves some. So because of that, I'm going to put it in B-. And finally, Tokyo Blur. I think Tokyo Blur is an awesome city track, especially for, you know, the whole Japanese. I think it's really cool. But the thing is, I feel like it's too short. Like, I feel like it's too short. I feel like maybe my tour mentality is still in there, where Tokyo Blur in general was really short. But even in Mario Kart Deluxe, I don't know if it's just me, but the track feels really short. So that's a little bit weird, but I think it's a pretty good city track. Like, just in general, pretty good city track. And if it was any longer, probably even an A tier. But it's going to sit comfortably in B- for now. Alright, now we're going to move up a little bit to the B+ tier. And at the start of the B+ tier, we have Toad Circuit and Mario Kart Stadium, which in my head are kind of just nothing burgers. Like, again, not bad tracks, but they are the very first tracks of their own respective games. Toad Circuit was Mario Kart 7, and Mario Kart Stadium is obviously this game, Mario Kart Deluxe. And they are not bad. They do a really good job for starter tracks if they're going to introduce new players to the game, because more often than not, new players, those are the first tracks that they're going to be playing. Like, if they're playing Mario Kart 7, it's going to be Toad Circuit, 8 Deluxe, Mario Kart Stadium. They do a good job for being a starter track. So either way, you can't really hate them. So they're going to go in B+. Next up, Riverside Park. Riverside Park, I have the exact same complaint as Tokyo Blur. It's too short. Like, it's way too short. And I think Riverside Park, I haven't tested it, but I feel like it's shorter because you're always going into the same loop. Whereas Tokyo Blur, you know, there's different turns because it's a city track. But Riverside Park, I feel like, is way shorter compared to Tokyo Blur. On the plus side, because I'm putting it in B+ instead of B-, is because I feel like it has a way better environment. Like, you're in could we call it a forest, a jungle? I don't know. I think the environment is really cool. Drive in a bridge, a cave, you got a ramp at the very end. I think it's just a tad bit better compared to Tokyo Blur. And after that, Toad Harbor. Similarly to other tracks, I feel like I outgrew this one, but not really a bad track by any means. It's got really good shortcuts, though. Like, the shortcuts are incredible for Toad Harbor. And also, just trams as obstacles, I think is a really, really unique idea. So Toad Harbor, I can see myself having fun with, but not too much fun. So that's why I'm putting it in B+. I think it's a good average course. Next up is Wario's Gold Mine, of which I have not really played in a while. But either way, it wasn't really my favorite track. I think it's really cool that you get to do a little spin whenever you hit the carts. I think that's an awesome touch. And as far as shortcuts go, there are like a couple that I can think of, and they're just corner cuts. There is that one shortcut around the end of the track where you can just tunnel through, but I feel like that's really easy to forget about, and just everyone like is either going to take it or they're not. But other than that, still a pretty basic track, but not the worst thing in the world. So it's going to go in B+. All right, Bone Dry Dunes is next. I have one major complaint with Bone Dry Dunes. Again, not a bad track, but I have one complaint. You know that fork in the road where you can either go on the left for the sandy path or the right for the bony path? When you take the bone path, that's just straight up a shortcut as a whole. Which, in my mind, it seems kind of pointless. Like, the bone track is just way shorter compared to the sand track, so you would never take the sand track. Like, everyone is always going to take the bone track just because it's faster. So I find that really pointless. I feel like it's a very pointless fork in the road because everyone's going to take the bone path because it's faster. But it's not really a bad track. Sure, it might be dim and not as out there compared to other tracks, but not a bad track. My one complaint is just the fork in the road because I feel like it's pointless. But other than that, it's going to sit pretty comfortably at B+. All right, next up, New York Minute. New York Minute, I've always thought is an average city track. I thought it was pretty good. Since I'm a tour player, or was a tour player, I thought that New York Minute was a nice introductory to Mario Kart Tour, and I never thought it was bad. I really didn't think it was bad. I thought it was really creative. I remember when it came out, I was wondering why they didn't do New Donk City. I feel like that would have been a really nice touch. But New York Minute, I don't think is a bad city track. Like, it's nice. It's nice. A good introductory to Tour and a nice addition to the courses in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I really don't think it's that bad at all. Next up is Merry Mountain and Yoshi's Island. Now, both of them I think are really good tracks, but I'm going to say the same thing about both of them. I feel like they just kind of happened because they happened. We needed a Christmas track. Merry Mountain. Or how about something that's based off Yoshi's Island? Yoshi's Island. Literally the course name. But these are actually really good tracks. Yoshi's Island, I believe, has more shortcuts compared to Merry Mountain. But they're both on a very equal level. So both of them are going to sit right next to each other at B+. Very comfortable there. And then there's DS Mario Circuit. Now, the reason I think this one is just a bit better compared to the one from 8 Deluxe or GBA is because they have really good shortcuts. Like, it has really good shortcuts, and they're huge, too. The shortcuts there are huge. And they have nice obstacles, too. Like, you got the piranha plants shooting fire. Like, that's a really good obstacle. So, yeah, DS Mario Circuit, I think, is better than 8 Deluxe Mario Circuit and also GBA Mario Circuit because they have bigger shortcuts that work very effectively and also pretty good obstacles. I'm not gonna lie, they're really good obstacles. So it's gonna be B+. Like, I can't bring a Mario Circuit to like A or S or anything because it is just Mario Circuit. It is very basic. But DS Mario Circuit and also, you know, the other two that I talked about earlier, they are done pretty well. So all of those I'm putting in the B tier. Next up, DK Jungle. DK Jungle, I think, is actually really, really good. I think it's awesome how you get to go from the jungle into the big temple. I think that's a really nice touch. Then you got the golden banana in the middle. Woo! Glider area at the end. You got the dudes that scream. I don't remember what they're called, but they scream as a hazard. Like, it's a nice track. It's a nice touch to Donkey Kong Country. So again, it's done right. It's a nice nod to Donkey Kong Country. So I'm going to put it in B+, just right under A. And also under A is going to be GCN Daisy Cruiser. Daisy Cruiser is an awesome track. Driving on a cruise ship, come on, how can you not like that? You got a little jacuzzi or a pool when you start. You get to go into the dining room. You go inside the water. You go into the back of the boat. Like, it has you explore most parts of the cruiser, which I really, really like. I think it's an awesome idea to be racing on a cruise ship. And just because of that, just because of the awesome idea and the things that you get to explore on Daisy Cruiser, that's why I'm going to put it in B+. Alrighty, now we're getting into the good stuff with the A- tier. And the first track we have in the A- tier is Royal Raceway. Now, I've always liked Royal Raceway. Like, it's not a situation where I would dislike it as a kid and like it more as I got older. I've always liked Royal Raceway. And I gotta say, I like it for how fast-paced it is. Although simple, it could be fast-paced. And they have a good chunk of shortcuts, which I think contributes to it being fast-paced. I never disliked Royal Raceway. I've always liked it, but not my favorite track, though. So it's going to sit comfortably just where it is in the A- tier. Next up, Sunset Wilds. Sunset Wilds, I've always had a lot of fun with. If they added the one feature that was, or still is, in Mario Kart Tour, then it would probably be, probably just a low S. If you don't know what I'm talking about, in Mario Kart Tour, when you hit the final lap, the sun would set. And it would become nighttime. So that's why it's Sunset Wilds. Which I think is a really nice touch. Even though it is the sunset in this course, obviously, I think that the sun setting it would just make it. Like, I think that's a really, really nice touch. But other than that, it's got a few shortcuts. Soundtrack isn't bad, and neither is the gameplay. So I'm going to leave it in A-. Alright, next up, Dolphin Shoals. Dolphin Shoals, I think, is really, really cool. You get to drive in like an underwater cave where it has multiple paths that you can take. You drive on top of a huge eel, which you can't dislike. And then that massive glider shortcut at the end of the track. Come on. How can you not dislike this track? It's awesome. It's awesome. But it's going to sit at A- in my opinion. Next up, Romavanti. Now, this was a track that I rated pretty low on my city track tier list for Mario Kart Tour. Reason being is because I never saw it that much. It showed up like once or twice, and that was about it. I never played it as much. But now that I've been able to play it a bit more, I find that it's a very chill track. Like, it's just chill. From what you've seen throughout this entire video, you'd probably pick up on the fact that I like tracks that have a kick to it, that have a bit of, excitement to it. It's got something to it. It keeps the energy going. But Romavanti, like, it's got its shortcuts, it's got its obstacles, and it's got its gameplay. But also, it's a very chill track, and I think they do it very well. Next up is Piranha Plant Slide. Now, same thing with, what was that I talked about? Daisy Cruiser. Instead of exploring a cruise ship, you explore the sewers. And I always like to imagine that that's where the piranha plants pretty much live, is the sewers. Like, right away, you get taken down into the pipe. You go down, and you're in the sewers. Like, they take you through pretty much every corner of the sewers, at least in that course. And I think it's really, really awesome. That's one thing that's like one of the only things that shine for me is the gameplay of Piranha Plant Slide. Other than that, as far as shortcuts go, there's like only one, so I guess it's okay. I say it's okay because it's effective. The music is awesome, and the gameplay, really, really fun. Next up is Snowland and Sherbetland. The two winter tracks. Well, actually, Rosalina's Ice World is right next to it, but we're going to talk about that in a few seconds. So, Snowland, although simple, it can be a lot of fun, and the reason being is because of that simple, I say simple, gap jump. And it's simple because, like, it's easy to pull off. If you're new to trying to do gap jumps, like if you're trying to do gap jumps, if you're new to it, Snowland is a good place to start. It's got a really simple gap jump. It's a lot of fun to play. And that's one thing that does it for me. It's satisfying when you get to do it. There's that satisfaction that comes with it. And then there's Sherbetland, which I think is also a very chill track, but also the creativity is awesome. You're driving on a frozen lake. You can drive in an ice cave. You're driving under the water. Like, it's cool. It's got the elements to it. I think it's a really cool track and also super chill. So that's why both Sherbetland and Snowland are going to go in A-. Then there's Rosalina Ice World, the third winter track in a row. Rosalina's Ice World, also really, really cool. Like, you're going through an ice cave. You got the... I don't even know how to describe it. The beginning of the track where you spiral around and try to avoid the abyss or whatever. Like, that's really cool. I think Rosalina's Ice World is a really, really cool track. Next up is Dry Dry Desert. Now, back when I talked about SNES Mario Circuit 3 in the D+ tier, Dry Dry Desert is also, the whole course is a shortcut. I mean, it could be. Like, after the water area at the end of the course, if you have a golden mushroom, you could dash all the way across the long piece of off-road. Like, the whole track is pretty much a shortcut. And that's one thing that shines with this track. That's, like, one thing that I have fun with, is the massive shortcuts. It's a lot of fun when you get to pull them off. And also, the gameplay in general, super fun. Like, even though it's just a desert, might not be that creative, the gameplay is a lot of fun. And I'd be lying if I said it's a boring track. So that's why I'm going to put it in A-. Next up is Waluigi Stadium. Waluigi Stadium, I also think is a really cool track, but I don't think that it stands up to Wario Stadium, which we're going to talk about in a bit. But Waluigi Stadium is also really, really cool. Music is pretty good. It's got very little shortcuts, which is all right. The gameplay is pretty fun. Like, it makes you feel like you're in a dirt bike stadium. I think that's really cool about Waluigi Stadium. So the creativity and the gameplay, I think that's what puts it in A-. And then next up is Maple Treeway. Now, Maple Treeway, I like to envision that us racers are shrunken down and into a tree in the fall. And I think that's really cool. We're racing all on the branches and stuff. I think that's awesome. I think it's a really creative idea. You got some good obstacles. You have only one shortcut pretty much, but it's effective. And the track, like the music, pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. It got some good music. And then speaking of music, the last track that we have in A- is Music Park. The creativity on Music Park is through the roof. I think it's an awesome track just because of that. It's got some good shortcuts. It's got some good music, because Music Park. The creativity, through the roof. And the gameplay, pretty fun. Not my favorite track, but there's nothing bad I can say about it. So that's why I'm going to put it in A-. And it is at this point in the tier list where I realized that Nintendo really nailed most of their tracks. Most of their tracks are really, really good. Now that we go into the A+ tier, we're going to talk about Sydney Sprint. Sydney Sprint, can I just say, the soundtrack freaking bangs. It's so good. It got such good music. And they fixed a major issue that I had in Mario Kart Tour. They had a really wide area, which, especially in Mario Kart Tour, was difficult to keep your combo on because, you know, you always want to keep your combo with at least mini turbos or coins. And that long area, they were really lacking with that. But now they added lots of ramps, which makes it interesting. It's kind of irrelevant because it's not like you're trying to do jump boosts to increase your scores. But at least it makes the track a bit more interesting. And I'm going to commend them for that. So that's why I'm going to put it in A+. Next up, Thwomp Ruins. I like the idea. I really like the idea. It's got that chill vibe to it because you got the music and the environment, super, super nice. It's sort of like, it's got a calm demeanor to it, which I can really admire, especially when it's done right. As far as gameplay goes, pretty fun. Like, I don't really have anything bad to say against Thwomp Ruins either. I think it's really, really fun. Next up, Yoshi Circuit. Probably going to have the same comments about Thwomp Ruins, except not as chill. Not as chill. But Yoshi Circuit is a lot of fun. And although it has like 3 shortcuts, they are all super effective and satisfying to do. Especially the waterfall cut. Because trust me, who doesn't like the waterfall cut? Everyone likes that waterfall cut. So, very fun track, very satisfying to do the shortcuts, especially when you get to do them shroomless. It's a lot of fun. I got nothing bad to say about Yoshi Circuit. It's a pretty good track. Next up, Cloud Top Cruise. Now this one, also very creative. The entire race, the entire track, makes you feel like you're going on one huge adventure. You're in the clouds, then you're on an airship, then you're in a thunderstorm in the clouds, then you're on a beanstalk, which is where you start. Clouds, ship, thunderstorm, beanstalk. It's the whole track. Like, it makes you feel like you're going on one big adventure. It's different tracks every single time. It's got some variety to it, which is awesome. Like, it's fantastic. So it's going to sit at A+. I don't think it would be in S tier because that's not one of my favorites, but like, I have nothing bad to say about it. It's a great track. Next up is Sunshine Airport. Now, Sunshine Airport, it's a track that never really got old, to be honest. Like, you start in the airport, then you go to like the bagging station, then you're on the runway, then you're in the sky, and when you're gliding back down to land and you see the plane take off, woo, Sunshine Airport, to me, never really got old. And as far as shortcuts go, they've got 2, 3 very simple ones. I know for a fact 2 of them are very simple. And that's fine, you know? Like, it's a Star Trek Cup, so it's bound to be very simple. But the shortcuts, they're not bad, they're effective, and they're very simple. And Sunshine Airport is definitely just not a track that got old. I love Sunshine Airport so much. I love the idea. I love the gameplay. It's a really good track. Next up, Athens Dash and Madrid Drive. So both of these, I feel, are on very equal levels. They have great music. They have great shortcuts, both of them. And gameplay, pretty good. Not to mention that they actually have attractions that are linked to their own countries. Athens Dash has, what was it called? It was like when you drive up, and it's like basically seating area. It looks like seating area, and then you drive around and then you continue on with the track. I don't remember what it's called. I'll probably put a piece of gameplay on screen. And Madrid Drive, I mean, it's Italy. You got the whole soccer field and everything. And that's awesome. Like, that's a really awesome touch. So I feel like both of them are on very equal levels. They're both really good tracks, which is why I'm putting them in A+. Next up is Coconut Mall. Same thing with Sunshine Airport. It's not really a track that can get old. Driving in a shopping mall, I think, is a really cool idea. As a shortcut, you get to drive literally inside of a store, which is awesome. The music, how can you hate it? And overall, just a really fun track to play. Not only did it never get old, but it's super fun to play, especially like when you consider the gameplay and the creativity that was put in there. So that's why I'm putting Coconut Mall in A+. Next up, Wario Stadium. I actually really like Wario Stadium. As crazy as this might sound, I prefer Wario Stadium over Waluigi Stadium. Primarily because Wario Stadium takes advantage of anti-gravity, which is a lot of fun. You literally get to go underwater. You have a lot of jump boosts that you could do. And I mentioned jump boost because it doesn't really have that many shortcuts. But either way, the gameplay itself, there's always something going on, which makes it really fun. And that's what I admire about it. So I'm going to put it in A+. Next up, Twisted Mansion. I could see a lot of people being confused with this one. Maybe. Because whenever I'd go online, I would never be able to play Twisted Mansion. I would probably be the only one of the entire lobby who would pick Twisted Mansion. And I feel like that's weird. Like, I don't understand why people don't necessarily like Twisted Mansion. I think it's an awesome track. The doors opening up literally as, you know, you're going in. I think that's awesome. I think Twisted Mansion is an awesome track, and it definitely deserves to be played more when you're playing online. Next up is Mushroom Gorge, which people might not like because of the gameplay when you're bouncing on the mushrooms and whatnot. But in all honesty, I like it. I've grown to like it. It's unique. It's different. And again, always something going on. You're bouncing. And as far as shortcuts go, I mean, we can't forget about the gap cut. Like, the gap cut is phenomenal, super effective, and satisfying when you land it. The music is awesome. Creativity, pretty good. Gameplay, lots of fun. It's overall a really good track. So I'm going to put it in A+ for that. Next up, Wii Rainbow Road. Wii Rainbow Road, one thing I can admire about Wii Rainbow Road, like the biggest thing I've admired, is the road. Just the road. As silly as it sounds, the road looks amazing. Even in Wii, before it came to 8 Deluxe, I always thought the road looked awesome. Like, it's so colorful and it feels animated, you know? Like, it's super nice. The music, amazing. Gameplay, amazing. Creativity, it's up there. I'm not gonna say it's the craziest thing in the world because there are rainbow roads that already exist. So, it's up there. And shortcuts, there are a few. But in general, nothing bad I could say about Wii Rainbow Road. So, it's gonna sit comfortably close to the top of A+. And finally, at the very top of A+, we have Moonview Highway. Which, I'm not gonna lie, probably the biggest thing that is carrying Moonview Highway to A+ is the music. Like, the music is so good. It is so good. It pretty much carries it to A+. The gameplay is pretty good. I'm not really a big fan of driving around obstacles that are cars, but you know, it's not a bad thing, but it's up there. Creativity, I think it's pretty good. You're literally driving in the city. I think it's awesome. Shortcuts, there are some, but barely noticeable. Music, skyrocket. This is me breaking my ceiling right now. It skyrockets. It's up there. Best music in the game. All right. We have reached the top of the list, pretty much, with the S tier. S-, S, and S+. But we're going to start with S-, because that's the bottom one. And I realized that this tier is probably the definition of it's the small things. Literally. Perfect example is Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing is the pure definition of the chillest of chill tracks. Because the music, like, you can't get any more chill than that. Compared to other tracks, like, it's chill. It's chill, it's calm, and that's why I like it. But also, another reason I like it, the 4 different seasons. The 4 different seasons. That is a really, really nice touch, especially for Animal Crossing. And that's why I like it. It's super creative and it's a really nice touch. That's why it's going into S-. Next up is DK Mountain. I've always liked the DK Mountain. Right when you start, you got the cannon that literally shoots you up right next to a volcano. And then you start to go down all the way on the mountain and make your way back to where you started. And I think that's a really awesome idea. I like the tracks that bring you on basically a tour of everything. That's why I gave Daisy Cruiser such high praise. That's why I gave Twisted Mansion such high praise. And I'm going to give high praise to DK Mountain for being able to take me on an adventure all the way down the mountain after shooting me up on a volcano. I like that. I like that a lot. I like the tracks that basically take you on an adventure. So that's why it's going in S-. Next up is 3DS Rainbow Road. Again, basically takes you on an adventure. Like, first off, I just want to point out that the road looks awesome. The road looks awesome. The way it's drawn, the way it's textured, I think it's awesome. And then eventually later on in the track, you go on the moon. You go on the moon. That is incredible. That's absolutely incredible. It's such a nice touch. And there's also other things that I could say about it, like, you know, you jump on the mushroom. I don't know. The moon is the biggest touch for me. Oh, Saturn's rings. I just remembered. You go onto Saturn. You go onto Saturn. You go on the moon. There's a mushroom in space for some reason. But it's a great track. It's a great track. I've got nothing bad to say about it. It's really good. So it's going to go into S-. Next up is Boo Lake. Oddly enough, it's Boo Lake. I like the eerie feeling of Boo Lake. I love the environment. First off, the environment is amazing. The music also amazing. It gives off that like scary kind of feeling. It's eerie, you know? Like, but it's weird that I like Boo Lake. It's short, but I still like it. Like, it's honestly not a bad track. I really enjoy it. It only has one shortcut, but it's effective. I don't know why I enjoy Boo Lake that much, but I do. It's a lot of fun to play on. I think it's because most times that I've played Boo Lake, I've been very fast-paced on. And I guess that's what takes it for me. But like I really like Boo Lake. The eerie feeling, the environment, that's what does it for me. So that's why it's going to go in S-. Next up is SNES Rainbow Road. This is probably the greatest SNES track in this game. It was the one they nailed the most. The texture of the road, the rainbow thwomps, the music, the small but effective shortcuts. Like, they did so many good things with SNES Rainbow Road. So, in my opinion, the best SNES track in this game. So, just for that, it's going to be an S-. Not the craziest thing in the world, but it still deserves a top spot in my opinion. Next up, Tick-Tock Clock. Again, you're being taken on an adventure, pretty much. Like, you're literally driving inside of a clock tower, or it's like the very top of the clock tower. Because when you start the race, if anyone has noticed, when you look up, you notice like the outside of the clock. You notice the little clock hands, and you can see outside. I think that's really cool. So that gives off the impression that you're racing inside of the top of the clock. With the gears, the hands, and everything. I think it's a really nice adventure, nice gameplay, nice environment. Shortcuts, they got some pretty good shortcuts. The only shortcuts I can think of are the ones on the clock hands and at the end of the track with the gears that one's going back, one's going forth. I think that's really nice. So shortcuts, good. Music, pretty good. Gameplay, awesome. And environment, awesome. So that's why I'm putting in S-. It deserves a top spot. Next up is Electrodrome. Now, Electrodrome, I don't think there's much I can say about it other than the environment is awesome. I like the idea. The whole disco idea, I think, is super cool. You got, well, there's the disco ball right there, which is like probably the biggest thing I could notice. Like, it's at the start. It's at the start when you begin the race. But also, other things I can point out. At the beginning of the track, when you're driving for a bit, you got a little trail behind you. There's one section where the sound becomes, what is it, the word? I can't remember. But you know that area in the track where you're driving and you have all the effects around the screen? That's what I'm talking about. And then you got the whole, like, piano or whatever it is, like, ding, 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 like, at the end of the track when you're about to glide. Like, it's purely a music-themed track, and I think that's awesome. And that's why I think it deserves a top spot. Next up, Waluigi Pinball. Once again, I'm going to be saying this a lot. Adventure. You're in a whole pinball machine, pretty much. As soon as you go onto the glider, and then you're in that green area, when you go on the ramp and leave that green area, that's basically when it starts. It's like you're all a bunch of mini pinballs, right? And then you're driving on the track, making your way all the way down into the actual pinball area. We could say that. The area that, you know, the pinballs are getting launched up and down. That's what I'm talking about. And then you get to do it again and again. Like, I think it's awesome. It's another really cool adventure, which is why I think it deserves a top spot. Next up, Neo Bowser City. Neo Bowser City, I think, is generally a really cool track. I think it's super cool. First off, music, amazing. Gameplay, amazing. Environment, really cool. Shortcuts, not that great. There's like one at the end, and then when you go on the last glider ramp, you can take the little glider area. It's like you go all the way to the left, and then you could trick, and then you're back on the track. I think it's a really cool track, but also Neo Bowser City is a freaking difficult track. It is a really difficult track, but it's fun to play on. It's fun to play on, and I can't hate it, so that's why I think it deserves a nice spot in S-. Next up is Cheeseland. I am not going to point out Cheeseland just because I can bag on it really effectively. To be honest, I'm not the biggest bagger, which it might sound weird for me to say, but I'm not the biggest bagger, which I honestly should start doing more. I don't know. But Cheeseland, I think, is a really creative track. Everything is made of cheese. Everything. I think it's creative. Like, it might seem simple, but it's also creative. And as far as shortcuts go, shortcuts are really effective and really good. And the music is pretty good too. So Cheeseland, I think, is a really fun track, even if I'm front running on it. Because, believe it or not, I have been front running on that track for a good chunk of time, and I would still win. So you don't always have to bag on Cheeseland. But other than that, Cheeseland is a fun track. Whether I'm bagging or front running, it's a fun track in general. So that's why I'm putting in S-. Next up is Shy Guy Falls. Again, it's the same situation with Twisted Mansion. I don't see a lot of people picking that online, which kind of sucks because I think Shy Guy Falls is a really cool track. You get to drive on waterfalls. Hello. And then you got the end area where you got the Shy Guys kicking in with the music and the long shortcut. Well, it's not really a long shortcut. It's a nice shortcut. It's a really cool shortcut. It's satisfying to take. Like, I think Shy Guy Falls is an awesome track. I don't have anything bad to say about it, that's why it kind of saddens me that no one picks it online. So solid S-. Solid S-, not my favorite, but it's up there. Next up is Bowser's Castle 3 from SNES. Now, Bowser's Castle 3, I think, is pretty good, actually. I think it's a fun Bowser's Castle. It can be fast-paced, and although simple, it is done right. So, now I'm rethinking about it. SNES Rainbow Road and SNES Bowser's Castle 3 are on very equal levels. Because I said SNES Rainbow Road is like probably the best SNES track they've ever made in this game. But then Bowser's Castle 3 is up there. But honestly, I mean, it's a Bowser's Castle. It's done right. It's very fun to play. And that's why I'm putting it in S-. Like, it's fun to play. It's enjoyable. It's got a nice soundtrack too, I'm not gonna lie. But I think that SNES, Bowser's Castle 3, and Rainbow Road are on very equal levels. So both of them are pretty equal on S-. And lastly, in S-, we have Sky Garden. Sky Garden, first off, can I just point out the soundtrack is phenomenal. I love the soundtrack. As far as shortcuts go, they only have like 2, but they can be pretty effective. And in general, like, the gameplay is super fun. I always have a good time whenever I play Sky Garden. Even if I'm not taking shortcuts, I always have a good time whenever I play Sky Garden. It's a lot of fun to play on, so therefore, I'm going to leave it in S-. Very comfortable spot there. Alright, everybody, are you ready to get into the biggest tier in this tier list? The S tier, the neutral S. We're right under my favorite tracks. So, starting off in neutral S, we have Koopa Cape and Grumble Volcano. Both very solid Wii tracks with very solid soundtracks, very solid gameplay. I'm saying solid a lot. Solid tracks, solid environment, solid gameplay, solid shortcuts. Like, they're the definition of solid. They are spot on tracks. They are really good. And I can admire that. So, like, they're really good. I can't even put them in S-. They are super good, and that's why I'm putting them in neutral S. Next up, Wild Woods. We got Wild Woods. So Wild Woods, I've never hated. I've played a lot of Wild Woods, and I think it's awesome. First off, can we talk about how you are literally starting the race vertical like this? Am I out of frame? I'm not out of frame. You're literally starting like this, and then you're driving up, and then it just levels itself out later on. I think that's really cool. Again, like Maple Treeway, you're pretty much driving on a tree, except it's not fall, it's like spring or summer. But Wild Woods is a really cool track. You even get to drive through like a whole village inside there. Like, it's amazing. You got the water area with lily pads. It's awesome. It's absolutely amazing, and that's why I'm putting in S. It's really creative, and I love it. Next up, Dragon Driftway. Dragon Driftway is an awesome course. You ever play the track in Grand Prix or Versus, and you got the cymbals that are going ham when they're showcasing the track? Seriously, if they're showcasing the track, don't ever skip it again. Those cymbals sound amazing. The soundtrack is awesome. Shortcuts, they're there, and they're pretty effective, and the gameplay is so much fun. The gameplay is a lot of fun. Like, Dragon Driftway generally is a lot of fun to play. Great environment, pretty good shortcuts, and amazing soundtrack. So that's why I'm putting it in neutral S. Next up, Mount Wario. Let me ask you this. Name one person who doesn't like Mount Wario. Everybody loves Mount Wario. It's so good. You're pretty much starting from a freaking, what is it? A plane, a helicopter? What is it? I don't know. But you're jumping from there. You're going down an ice hill. Then inside of a cave with water. And in some kind of station. I don't know what it is. But it's some kind of station. I don't know. And then a snowy hill. And then you're in a ski track. Where you're going down the ski track. And then you make it all the way to the end. Like, that's really cool. The track design the track design is unbelievable. It's through the roof. It's up there. And shortcuts, they've nailed shortcuts. There's at least one shortcut that you could do every single lap, and I say that because it's not like one big circle where you're looping. They have one shortcut for every single lap, at least, bare minimum. So that's why I'm putting it in S. Super fun gameplay, shortcuts are awesome, soundtrack is pretty good too, and the creativity is awesome. Next up is Vancouver Velocity and Singapore Speedway. Vancouver Velocity and Singapore Speedway, I feel, are on the same levels. The soundtrack is really, really good. Shortcuts, they're also pretty good. I think Vancouver Velocity has a lot less shortcuts compared to Singapore, but either way, they're still pretty good and they can be effective. And gameplay, a lot of fun. I was trying to remember if I mentioned soundtrack, which I think I did. Or maybe I didn't. If I didn't, I just want to say both soundtrack, awesome. Both of them have amazing music. I'm just going to say that. I probably already said it, but just in case I didn't think about it, I'm thinking about it now. So Singapore Speedway and Vancouver Velocity, both city tracks, but I think they're on the same level. They're both really good, and I think they deserve a good spot in neutral S. Next up is DK Summit, and honestly, I want to ask, just like Mount Wario, who doesn't like DK Summit? Who does not like DK Summit? DK Summit is an awesome track. And when you get to do the double gap cut, oh my god, it's amazing. It's so satisfying to do. And it's basically the exact same thing. Like, now thinking about it, I think it's the exact same thing. Well, not really exact same thing, but it's very similar to Mount Wario. Because Mount Wario, you're going down a ski hill, and it's basically the same thing with DK Summit, but we could probably just switch that with snowboarding. Because the Shy Guys are literally snowboarding at the end, and you have a huge wooden statue of Donkey Kong snowboarding. So I think that's why I would probably switch it to snowboarding. And just DK Summit deserves a solid spot in S, and I'm sure most people can agree here. Everyone loves DK Summit as much as they love Mount Wario. Next up is Bowser's Castle from Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I personally think that this is one of the best Bowser's Castle they've ever made. I was going to say the best, but then I just remembered Mario Kart Wii's Bowser's Castle exists, which, if you haven't seen it, first off, what are you doing with yourself? Second of all, it's probably the greatest Bowser's Castle they've ever made. And Bowser's Castle from this game is a really strong second. The music, amazing. The obstacles, unbelievable. They got lasers at the start of the race. You have a huge, like, molten Bowser who's made of, like, lava rocks, and he's punching the track, and it's amazing. It's so good. Like, I think they got really creative. They got really creative with this Bowser's Castle, and it deserves a really good spot in neutral S. So I'm just gonna leave it there. Chillax, get an S, you're staying there, okay? Next up is Berlin Byways. Like I mentioned, I'm not really the biggest fan of driving around cars that are obstacles, but one thing I will say, the music freaking bangs. It is so good. The music for Berlin Byways is so good. And also, the reason I'm putting it, like, in S compared to, you know, Moonview Highway, because I did mention that I'm not the biggest fan of driving around car obstacles. The reason I'm putting it there is because there is a portion of the track. There are portions. There's multiple portions of the track where you don't drive when there are cars around. Moonview Highway, there's pretty much always cars going around. So Berlin Byways, it has that nice, you know, variety. You drive with cars, sometimes you don't, sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. And the soundtrack absolutely slaps. It's really good. So I'm going to put Berlin Byways in S. It's one of my favorite city tracks. If not, probably my favorite city track. I think it's probably my favorite city track, to be honest. Next up is Rainbow Road, the one from this game. I love Rainbow Road. First off, soundtrack is amazing. And the one thing that shines with Rainbow Road, I think, is how you get to be creative with what path you take. No, it's not the first. It's the second glider ramp. You start the race, you have one glider ramp, and then you have the second one, where you have the two paths that cross each other and whatnot. You can be creative with the paths that you take. Like, you can be creative with it. You can go from one path to another, and then that same path to another path. Like, you can be creative, and I think that's awesome. I think that's an awesome touch. Other than that, gameplay, super fun, like I just talked about. Shortcuts, awesome, because that's basically what I'm talking about with the tracks. And the environment is actually pretty cool. They actually didn't go with a rainbow in the sky. They actually went with pretty much a space station, which I think is very unique compared to the other rainbow roads. So that's why I think it deserves a nice spot in neutral S. Next up is Hyrule Circuit. Hyrule Circuit is unbelievable. It is so good because, well, first off, a nod to The Legend of Zelda, but they did it really right. Really right. I've never said really right, like ever. But they did it right, you know? They switched the coins from rupees, or they switched the coins to rupees. They have a little, like, Easter egg where if you hit all of the, I keep forgetting what they're called. It's the things that make you spin. If you hit all of them, and the Master Sword will show up. And then you have shortcuts that you can take at the end of the track, which are, they're really effective and they're really good. Really satisfying to take. So, yeah, Hyrule Circuit is a really fun track to play on, and it can also be really satisfying at times. So that's why it deserves a solid spot in S. Next up is Ice Ice Outpost. Ice Ice Outpost, I think, is really creative. For pretty much the whole track, you're always driving on basically two split paths. Like, you have the green path and then the yellow path. Like, you're pretty much driving on that the whole freaking time, which allows you to be creative with what path you take. Other than that, the soundtrack is really good, and the shortcuts. That's my favorite part of Ice Ice Outpost. You have one shortcut that literally links to another. So there's one shortcut, then you go back on the track for like a brief moment, and then you go take the other shortcut. I'm pretty sure you guys know what I'm talking about. But that is an awesome shortcut to take, and it's really satisfying too. And at the end, you got a really satisfying shortcut. It might be a bit difficult for new players, but it's satisfying. Trust me, once you learn how to do it, it's up there. It's satisfying to use, and it's effective. So because of its gameplay, its pretty good soundtrack, its environment, and its amazing shortcuts, it deserves a nice spot at S. And then finally, the very last track in neutral S, we have Mute City. Mute City is really, really fun. And the reason I'm saying that is, first off, the gameplay is really fun because of how fast-paced it is. It is super fast-paced. First off, when you start the race, you have the bunch of dash panels that are on the track, and that's super fun to take because that just adds more to the fast pace of Mute City. Like, that's why it's up there. It's really, really fast-paced. The music is really good as well. I'm just going to say the music is really good. Gameplay, just talked about it. It's amazing. And the shortcuts, well, it's got very little shortcuts, but they're up there. More specifically, I'm talking about the very end, where you have the shortcut at the top, you go from one part to another, and then back on the track. That is pretty much a guaranteed win. It is an amazing shortcut and a lot of fun to take. Super satisfying. Mute City, generally, is a very, very fun track. Awesome gameplay, awesome music, awesome shortcuts. Even though there aren't that many shortcuts, they are awesome to take. Super satisfying, and that's why I'm putting it at the very top of S. And now, we have reached the very top of the list. The S+ tier, my absolute favorite tracks of all time. If I ever lay my eyes on those tracks, if they are online, if they are selectable to play online, I will pick them, zero hesitation. That's why there are only 5 tracks here, because they are my top 5 favorites. First off, we're going to start with Piranha Plant Cove. I'm sure a lot of people love Piranha Plant Cove. I liked Piranha Plant Cove when it was in Tour, and things only got better when I played it in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And that's weird of me to say, because I didn't think I was going to like it. I'm not the biggest fan of water physics in this game, but I was able to make use of it very well. I'm talking about mostly the shortcuts that you can take, like where you hold down with the analog stick and you're basically just gliding on an entire off-road part. Like, those are really satisfying shortcuts to take. In general, gameplay is a lot of fun. The environment is amazing. The music is really good, and the shortcuts are a lot of fun. Like, once you master them, they can take a little bit of time to master, but when you master them, oh, cherry on top. The shortcuts literally cherry on top. They're so satisfying, so good. It 100% deserves a spot as my top 5 favorite. My number 4 favorite is GBA Ribbon Road. Ribbon Road I've always liked, just for the creativity alone. Like, I like the fact that Ribbon Road is basically like an assembly track that you get like in a box. You know, like, I'm talking about like, you know, you get a Lego set or Connects. You guys remember Connects? Literally. It's like you'd get it in a box and you'd assemble it and you'd play with it. That's awesome. And also, can we just focus on the fact that the track literally takes place in some child's room? That's a nice touch. That is a really nice touch. Also, the shortcuts are unbelievable. There's so much fun to take, and they're super effective, super satisfying. I have nothing bad to say about Ribbon Road. It definitely deserves a spot in S+. Next up, Squeaky Clean Sprint. I don't think I need to explain myself for this one. You are driving in a literal bathroom. You go down a bathtub drain. You get shot up from a toilet. You go inside the bathtub. That's how you go in the drain. Like, it's so creative. Like, it boggles my mind how Nintendo thought of, like, hey, let's make our players race in a giant bathroom. Like, it boggles my mind how they were able to think of that and make it really good. They made it work, and they made it really good, most importantly. Like, I have nothing bad to say about Squeaky Clean Sprint, and I'd honestly be surprised if any of you guys had anything bad to say about it. I'm not saying you shouldn't have anything bad to say about it. If there's something you don't like about Squeaky Clean Sprint, let me know. Let everybody know in the comments. It doesn't matter. It's your opinion. But I, personally, really love Squeaky Clean Sprint. Like, I absolutely love it. I love the idea. I love the gameplay. It's a lot of fun. It definitely deserves a spot in S+. Next up is Ninja Hideaway. Ninja Hideaway is probably the most difficult track to play on in the entire game. Maybe. I'm saying that as my own opinion, but if there's a more difficult track, let me know. But I think that Ninja Hideaway is really difficult to play on. But despite that, the things that Nintendo were able to do with Ninja Hideaway are out of this world. They're absolutely out of this world. And if you remember from watching my tour content, I've always pointed out that Ninja Hideaway is my absolute most favorite track in Mario Kart Tour. And the fact that it was brought to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe made me so happy. Like, it is so good. I love Ninja Hideaway. I like the Japanese everything. I was gonna say art style, but like, it's a course. But I like the environment. I like, you know, where do I even start? Where do I even start? Oh my god. Okay, listen. I need a moment. Okay, if I'm thinking about from the start of the track, let me think about this, okay? Off the start of the track, you have the option whether or not you want to go on the top floor or the bottom. If you go on the bottom, you literally have the obstacles of giant shurikens that go up and down. You have ninja Shy Guys that vanish. In the glider area, you literally have bamboo sticks with wind coming out of it that shoot you up. And then at the end of the track, you're driving on, like, the roof of a building, which is incredible. Like, the amount of attention to detail they put in Ninja Hideaway is incredible. And it is my absolute favorite track in Mario Kart Tour. And I was excited to hear that it was coming to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. But it's not my favorite track in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. It is a close second, though. Favorite track in Tour, but not in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. When it comes to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, the title of my favorite track goes to Big Blue. I have always liked Big Blue. It is really, really fast-paced, and it only gets faster because water is literally on the track, and it makes you go faster. You have very satisfying shortcuts that you can take. The music is an absolute bop, and the gameplay is amazing. You get to be creative, especially at the end, you get to be creative with what path you want to take, and I think that is a really awesome touch. Like, Big Blue, nothing beats Big Blue. Like, when I heard Ninja Hideaway was coming to the game, I was really curious whether or not it was gonna beat Big Blue, but as it turns out, it's not. I love Ninja Hideaway, but I'm sorry, nothing beats Big Blue for me. I love Big Blue so much. It will always remain my favorite track. But either way, both Big Blue and Ninja Hideaway are more than deserving of a spot in S+. They are both my favorite tracks. I love them so much. Alright, you guys. Well, that is going to do it for me talking about the tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I have rambled on for a long time. Like, honestly, my throat is a little bit iffy because of how much I've been talking. But, hey, I rambled on for a while, so, yeah. I think it's time to cut it here. I would really appreciate it if you guys left a massive thumbs up on this video, please, because this took a really long time to make. Like, this took a really long time to make. I would really appreciate a like from you guys, please. And obviously, I know there are going to be some people who are going to disagree with some placements that I put on this list. So, hey, if you like a certain track that I don't, like if you think one track deserves a higher placement, or if you think one at the top deserves a spot lower, let me know. I would love to hear your guys' opinions, because I'm sure everybody has different takes on all the tracks. Like, there's bound to be pretty much everyone is probably going to disagree with my list. At least one thing everybody's going to disagree on. And that's okay, you know? It's just my list. Like, it's strictly my opinion. Let's not forget that. But other than that, I want to thank everybody for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, I thank you sincerely so much for watching and just listening to me ramble on about all 96 tracks in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And with all that being said, I'm going to continue working on more content to provide for you guys, because I've already worked on this for a while and my channel has gone a while without getting new content. So I hope you're looking forward to the new content. I will see you guys later.